in India, and it offers examination coaching for UPSC, CSC, State Public Service Commissions, SSC combined graduate level, and CLAT examinations. So do visit AKS IAS Academy, which is one of the premier institutions in India. And about me, I am Sandeep Bhushan Tumala, and my credentials are: I have 10 years of teaching experience for civil services. I teach international relations, internal security, and the analysis of the Hindu newspaper. And this session will definitely help you to crack prelims and mains examinations, because throughout my session I would be emphasizing on the importance of the keywords and the key phrases, which we will be identifying them from the newspaper, that is the daily news analysis. So by emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases, we will definitely be in a position to identify the factual, analytical, and also the conceptual questions, which will be very useful for the preliminary examinations. So thereby you will have an edge over others in the preliminary examinations by making sure that you are emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases, which I would be taking up in the AKS IAS Academy daily news analysis. So it will be certainly useful for you in regards to the prelims examinations, and not only in regards to the prelims examinations, it will also be useful for the mains examinations, because mains examinations is all about answer writing. So definitely the technique what you need to keep it in mind is that while you are writing your answers in the mains, your mains answer should be precise and concise to what is being demanded by the UPSC. So definitely you have to focus that your answers should be precise and concise. And once your answers are precise and concise, which is definitely part of your mains examinations, you will score higher marks in the mains examination, that is in your answer writing. So definitely this session wherein I would be emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases, which will be helpful for you for both prelims and mains examinations for the year 2020 as well as 2021. And this session is in regards to the daily news analysis, that is DNA, which we will be taking up today's, that is 1st of September 2020, the Hindu. And I would reiterate my tagline, which goes ahead with emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases. So what is very important is that while you are also getting into the mode, or you also preparing the other subjects, get into the mode of identifying the keywords and the key phrases, which will be certainly useful for you in regards to the prelims and mains examination, and also which will be very useful for interview, that is the personality test of the UPSC or State Public Service Commissions. So before I get into the topic, I would say very good morning to the one who is in the live and also in the live chat. So good morning to Rahul and D. Suvarna. A warm welcome to both of you, and to all the one who is in the live also. Madhava is also joined. A warm welcome to you all to the AKS IAS Academy daily news analysis by me, that is Sandeep Bhushan Tumala. And the quote of the day is: your desire to succeed, your desire to succeed should be greater, should be or must be greater than your desire to be average. So you have two kinds of desire. You have two kinds of desire. One is to succeed and one is to be an average. So always your desire to succeed should be greater than being an average. You have to always think about your desire has to be always to succeed, so that it has to be greater than your desire of average. So definitely Your desire should not be average, it should be maximum or greater that you need to attain or to be a successful one person. So definitely let all your desires be greater than your desires of being an average in regards to your success or in regards to your goal. So this is the quote of the day. So your desire to succeed must be greater than the desire to be an average. And before I get into the next slide or the daily news analysis, K. Ramudu has joined, Praveen Kumar has also joined. A warm welcome to both of you to AKS IAS Academy. And I would get into the topic that is daily news analysis, which the main page or the front page talks about PLA's aggression blocked at Pyongyang Seoul Lake. So we have been following this news since May 5th. Fine. That is along the LAC, the line of actual control between India and China. Between India and China, we have been following this, and we have also seen that midnight of June 15, we have seen 20 brave Indian soldiers have been martyred in the Galwan Valley. In the Galwan Valley, 20 Indian soldiers were martyred. And then later on, we have also seen that the discussions between both the countries, that is in regards to India and China, to reduce or to come partially or completely disengagement of, I have said these words also to focus, that is the keywords, disengagement of the troops along the LAC. So the disengagement of the troops, both from Indian side or the Chinese, that is the People's Liberation Army, wherein we wanted the Chinese troops or the People's Liberation Army troops to disengage from the conflict zones along the LAC, conflict zone along the LAC. So we had various levels of talks, extremely sorry. So those various levels of talks were in regards to the military engagement level talks, diplomatic engagement level talks, and then in regards to the special representative level talks. So militarily, diplomatically, that is in regards to the Ministry of External Affairs and the Foreign Ministry of China, and then even in regards to the special representative level talks. So all these were what, for making sure that there will be disengagement of troops along the LAC from the China side, or from which the PLAs are in Indian territory, wherein the PLAs are still stationed in Indian territory. So we have been following this news since May, and this is September. So definitely we are into the mode of the most important keyword is disengagement of troops. This is the most important one along the LAC, and we have seen that the army said, that is, and whatever I have said is the background of it, what we are actually following since May 5th, and we have seen various levels of talks so that there would be peace and tranquility or friendship along the borders between India and China, or India-China border affairs. India-China border affairs, and then maintaining peace and tranquility or friendship or territorial integrity between India and China along the line of actual control. So on August 31st, that is yesterday, we have seen again the ongoing standoff, the disputed boundary in Ladakh, that is the eastern Ladakh. We have seen Chinese troops have carried out aggressive moves. Again, this is a new technique which has been brought in, or else the Chinese troops are not really moving out from the Indian territory, from the Indian territory and getting back into the Chinese territory. Instead, they are aggressively moving into the Indian territory further, and that was experienced. That was witnessed on the night of August 29. And this is what I've also said this in the past. That is, India wanted this status quo to be maintained by China, keeping in view the status quo which India and China have been maintained, and India wanted China to maintain the status quo of April. But what do you mean by status quo? That is the present situation. So India wanted the present situation. Which present situation? Which it was in the month of April 2020. So the LAC, or else where the People's Liberation Army or the Chinese troops were stationed along the LAC, that point should be considered as a status quo. So India wanted April, wherein April 2020, wherein the People's Liberation Army or the Chinese troops were stationed in the particular territory, that could be in the Chinese territory. So why they are aggressively moving into Indian territory? That is, they wanted to change. They wanted to change the status quo. But India says we will maintain, or we will just focus on the status quo, wherein the People's Liberation Army were on the Chinese territory along the LAC, taking into consideration of April month, April 2020. But what is happening is, every time China or Chinese troops get into the Indian territory, for example, this is one, again later on they further get into this point, and further on they get into this point. So, and further on, for example, they are getting into this point. So all this is being covered, and this is all Indian territory. Indian territory. So if you take this as an example of April month, wherein they were along the LAC, and now this is August. So what they would do is, Chinese army, they would say, okay, fine, now we will not really get into the Indian territory, but the status quo what we maintain is this point, this area. So what do you mean by that? They have entered into the Indian territory and they're maintaining this status quo. And this status quo, that is, for example, August 2020 status quo, will be again set in the future, could be again in the future 2022 or 2024 or further. They would say, we will maintain the status quo of August 2020. But what India says? No, we would maintain, India says we would maintain the status quo of April 2020. April 2020. That is what India is very much particular about, and what China is also particular about is the status quo. So that is what they wanted to change the present situation along the LAC. That is why they are getting aggressively into Indian territory. On the night of 29, the Indian army has witnessed this, and they have entered into south bank of Pangong Tso Lake. So you have Pangong Tso Lake. So south of Pangong Lake, they have entered, and also they have entered into Reghin, or you call it as Rezangla. So mountain pass, Rezangla mountain pass. So two areas still the Chinese army are not moving back, but they are further entering into Indian territory. So that 2 points. So 2 points wherein Chinese troops are entering into Indian territory, so that they wanted to change the status quo, is south bank of Pangong Tso Lake. These two, please do take it into consideration for a conceptual understanding. And the other one is Rezangla, or you can say Rekin Mountain Pass, Lais Pass. So these two are the one wherein now still the Chinese troops are vigorously trying to enter into Indian territory and then change the status quo. I have explained you what is status quo, that is present situation. So they wanted to maintain the present situation of what they have entered number of kilometers into India, and then they say, yes, now we will not move further, but we will consider this point as the status quo. We will not go back. We will stay here itself. That is what China is trying. And the 2 points are South Bank, Pyongyang So Lake and Rakhine Mountain Pass or Resang La. And we have seen in the past also, as I have said, in regards to the military level or military engagement level talks and then diplomatic engagement level talks and special representative level talks. And in regards to the military, we have the brigade commander level talk. Brigade commander level talks, and this were definitely in regards to resolving the issue between India and China along the LAC, that is disengagement. So when we are talking about resolving, that is in regards to the peace and tranquility. That means peace and tranquility is maintaining friendship, peace and friendship, and then trying to protect the territorial integrity of each other country. Territorial integrity. So these two are the keywords: peace and tranquility, maintaining peace and tranquility, and then territorial integrity. So this is what was actually taken up in all the different levels of talks. But still, we have seen the Chinese army is aggressively moving into Indian territory, and that is what is the cause of concern. And if they were being, aggression was blocked. They were blocked at Pyongyang So Lake. So the latest information in regards to the LAC between, or the face of a skirmish or the standoff between India and China along the LAC in the eastern Ladakh, is this information. And Vinay, before I get into the other slide, Vinay, Ram Sunil, Harika Yadav, Ram Kumar, Aluwala, Srikanth Balu, UPSC aspirant Madhu, all of you have joined, and a warm welcome to you all to AKSIS Academy Daily News Analysis. And then we were discussing about the PLA's aggression, that is People's Liberation Army, that is China's troops aggression or getting into the Indian territory along the south bank of Pyongyang So Lake and Rakhine Mountain Pass. So again, say this we are talking about in regards to the LAC between India and China, right? But again, we have to look at in regards to the geography point of. Why? Because we are talking about, you never know, on the Pyongyang Lake there could be a question in geography, and again in the passes, in regards to the pass. So you have various passes. You have Karakoram Pass, you have this Rakhine Mountain Pass, and good job has also joined. A warm welcome to you. Good job, Janardhan. Very good morning to you. So this I have taken it for your better understanding from prelims point of view. So if we look at this Galwan Valley, this is Galwan Valley, wherein we have seen that the attack or skirmish between Indian troops and Chinese troops, it has taken place at this point, Hot Spring and Galwan Valley, and even Hot Spring is the conflict zone. So conflict zones we have seen earlier, that is patrolling point 14, 15 and 17 along the Galwan Valley and Hot Spring, and the conflict zone is Pyongyang So Lake, we have seen in the past, and then Galwan Valley, Hot Spring, Depsang Plains, and now the latest one is the Rakhine. Fine. So these are the conflict zone along the LAC between India and China. So for your benefit, I'm showing this. So this is Pyongyang Lake. This is Pyongyang Lake. And you have the Karakoram Pass here. Here you have Karakoram Pass. Why I'm saying is, This is Karakoram Pass, because you need to focus in regards to whether there would be a question. So you have here another pass, fine. And we were discussing about that the brigadier level command talks have been taken in Chushul. So here you have Chushul, and then this is Demchuk. Demchuk is also one of the conflict zone. Demchuk. So this is Demchuk, Chushul area, and then Pyongyang So Lake, and then hot springs, and this dotted is the LAC, and this is Aksai Chin, or you can call it as Ladakh, Eastern Ladakh part, and this is Kargil area, and this part is the Siachen Glacier, and Siachen Glacier is the highest battlefield in the world, and you have here Gilgit and Baltistan, which is, we say it is part of POK, and it is controlled by Pakistan, which is claimed by India. So this is again LOC. This is LOC. The blue dotted is LOC, and this is LAC, line of actual control. So you have the Karakoram ranges here. Why I'm saying all this is for geography map base. And see, look at it. You have the Karakoram Pass here. This is Karakoram Pass, and this is important, Daulat Beg Oldie. Why? Because Daulat Beg Oldie, as I said in the past also, that you have the Indian Air Base, and this part is Depsang Plains, Galwan Valley, and you have a Daulat Beg or Darbuk Shok Daulat Beg Oldie Road. You have this road which has been constructed by Border Roads Management, that is from Darbuk, almost from Leh. This part you have here, and then it goes like this. So this is 255 kilometers, which is connecting almost Darbuk, from Darbuk Shok to Daulat Beg Oldie to the India's airbase. So the main concern is that India is going ahead with infrastructure development, and that is not being accepted or digested by China. And now we will look at this. So as I said, this is Pyongyang So Lake, this one. So if you are looking at this, so this is the one which is Pyongyang So Lake. So south of here, what we have seen is the Chinese are getting into the south bank of Pyongyang So Lake into Indian side, and this mountain pass, Regin mountain or Rezangla. So which is again south to Chushul, and if you look at it, is not to Demchuk. You will have here Demchuk. Right? So this is very important for you in regards to the geography map based, and a better understanding about what is actually happening along the LAC. And you should not just read it just for the sake of, oh, you are just reading it. No, you need to know it from geography map based, considering UPSC examination. UPSC examination. So this is almost. So if you look at, say, these are glaciers, Siachen glaciers. Fine. Now I'll get into the next one. The next topics which talks about GDP falls 23.9% in first quarter. So we have been looking at this Indian economy contract. We have been looking at this news in regards to the Indian economy contract. Contract is what? Squeezing. Squeezing means it is falling. The Indian economy or the GDP is dwindling, is falling. Fine. So this is what we have been focusing since almost couple of days. That we have seen that RBI annual report, and McKinsey group of institutes have also come up with the report. So it also made it very clear that Indian economy or the GDP is shrinking. And now what is important is National Statistical Office have also released a data, has released a data that is yesterday, saying that Indian economy is seeing the worst contraction in decades. This is very important for your better understanding, that is conceptual understanding. So along with, what is very important is the reports. These reports are very important for preliminary examination point of view, any kind of report. And here we are focusing in regards to the economy. So the reports which recently we have seen last week in regards to the RBI coming up with the annual report, and MGI with McKinsey group coming up with its report saying that India's economy is contracting. And now the new data which has been released by the National Statistical Office says that Indian economy is in the worst contraction in the decades, and its GDP is shrinking. It has shrunk to 23.9 percentage, almost 24 percentage in the April-June quarter. So the first quarter. So first quarter of 2021. So the first quarter of the 2021, because why all this? Because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation and because of the national lockdown, we have experienced that the Indian economy, as per the National Statistical Office data released, Indian economy saw its worst contraction in decades, and with its GDP shrinking to 23.9 percentage, that is almost close to 24 percentage in the first quarter of 2021, that is from April to June. If we compare it with 2019-20, this is what the decrease is, that shrinking of the GDP is, comparing it with the last year's first quarter, that is first quarter of 2019-20 and the first quarter of 2020-21. If you look at, the GDP has shrunk to 23.9 percentage. And what does it reflect? It reflects severe impact of the COVID-19 lockdown. It reflects severe impact of the COVID-19 pandemic situation, and wherein this has impacted very severely all the, or entirely the economic activities have come to a grinding halt. All the economic activities have come to a grinding halt, and that is why its consequences is reflecting a severe impact on the Indian economy, and it is also onto the gross domestic product, which is comparing it with the first quarter of 2019-20 and the first quarter of 2020-21 is 23.9 percentage it has reduced. And this is the one which has to be looked at it very seriously, because we need to come out of it. And many economists are also expecting that, many economists, experts are certainly expecting this. There would be this Indian economy contraction. When you compare it with annual GDP, please do understand, annual GDP, when you compare it with the annual GDP, this year will be the worst in the history of independent India. So in India's or independent India, that means since almost 70 years, this kind of annual GDP contraction has never taken place. That is what the economists are expecting, that this would be the worst economic contrast in the history in the independent India. That is why we need to focus it, how it will impact the Indian economy, and further how it will impact the various sectors. When we are talking about various sectors, that is core sectors, and how it will impact again the human being, that is the common man. And DK Srivastava. DK Srivastava, we will look at what he has actually made a statement in regards to the condition, what the situation, what India is experiencing because of the grinding halt of the economic activities in consonance with the COVID-19 pandemic situation. So, who is Dr. Srivastava? He is the Chief Policy Advisor at EY India and a member of the Advisory Council to 15th Finance Commission. So, DK Srivastava, who is Chief Political Advisor and the member of the Advisory Council of the 15th Finance Commission, has said that I don't see GDP returning to positive territory for 6 quarters. So he's talking about GDP will still falter or still come down, or it will still fall down for another 6 quarters. That is comparing it with the from the first quarter. Please do understand, from the first quarter of 2020-21. That means you have in 2021 4 quarters. Please do understand. And then in 2021 and 2022, the first 2 quarters. So this 4 plus 2 is 6. That is what he is saying. That means this entire year, 2020-2021 financial year, will be badly hit, and there is no scope of any kind of recovery, as per DK Srivastava, who is the Chief Policy Advisor and a member of the Advisory Council to the 15th Finance Commission, that until second year. So definitely in the second quarter, as per DK Srivastava, in the or after second quarter, that is in the third quarter of 2021 and 22, the GDP will slowly, come to its or back to its normal position, which we have seen prior to COVID-19 also. So it is not that only from COVID-19 or from March 2020 we have this economic slowdown. No, there was economic slowdown even before COVID-19 also. Almost 2018 and 2019 we have also experienced the economic slowdown in India, and that has been aggravated by the COVID-19. That is why the India's economic contraction is the worst economic contraction in the independent India. That is what the economics have said. And then the GDP is to contract from almost 5 to 7% in 2021. And the last time, that is, we are talking about the 2020 Indian economy contraction or economic contraction. And the last time when this kind of economic contraction has taken place was in the year 1979-1980. So this again, for prelims point of view, we need to look at. So the last contraction of this kind of we have seen almost this kind of was in the year 1979-1980, when the GDP shrank to 5.2%, and now the experts are saying it will contract to 5 to 7%. But in 1979-1980 it was only of 5.2%. Now almost 5% to 7%. So this will be the greater GDP shrink, contract, compared to the 1979-1980. And we have also seen in the past another 4 instances wherein minor contraction, wherein these two, that is 2020 and 1978, are the major one what we are talking about. And if you talk about the minor contraction or economic contraction, has taken place 4 times in 1965-68 and also in 1972-73. These are very, very important for conceptual understanding and range point of view in regards to the GDP, gross domestic product, how India's gross domestic product has been contracting or has contracted in the past. That is 1965-68 first time and 1972-73 second time, which were both minor, and then the major one was in the year 1979-80 and now 2020 fourth time. So these are all very important for you in regards to understanding how the Indian economy is contracting, and which has been the report which has been drafted or released by National Statistical Office. And Azmat Mohammed has also joined. A warm welcome to you, Azmat, to AKSIS Academy Daily News Analysis. And out of all this, so we are definitely now, before I get into this, so as I've said you earlier also, that you have 8 core sectors, 8 core sectors. So these are all very important, 8 core sectors, because I have repeated in the past and I am reiterating once again that there could be one question in the prelims for sure on the sidelines of core sectors or on the basis of core sectors. So coal is one, crude oil, please do, I'm writing it because it should be stored in your mind, the 8 core sectors: natural gas, petroleum, refinery products, and then you have the fertilizers, cement, you have steel, and the last one is the electricity generation. So a couple of weeks back also we were talking about the increase in the production of electricity generation, and we have linked it to the 8 core sectors. So there we were talking about the fertilizers, and there I was talking about electricity generation. And here also very important is that the 8 core sectors, you need to keep in mind always, this is very important for UPSC and also the public service commissions economy point of view. It is important for prelims as well as conceptual understanding for mains point of view also. And if you look at the sectors, I mean three sectors. So out of these 3 sectors, so what is that the report is talking about? The agriculture one is only sector which recorded a modest growth of 3.4. So we can consider this as from the fertilizers. So agriculture and allied sectors, they have increased 3.4 percentage, but there is a steepest fall of almost 50 percentage in construction. So manufacturing or industrial sector. And the service sector. So primary sector, secondary sector, and then the tertiary sector. So if you look at, construction has fallen down to 50 percentage, and in regards to the service sector, that is trade, hotels, transport and communication. So all these are what? Service. They provide service and they charge for you, and that service sector has been reduced to 47 percentage, and the maximum hit is the construction 50 percentage, services sector, that is trade, hotels, transport and communication, which they provide the service and they charge for you, that has shrunk to 47 percentage, and the manufacturing has shrunk to 39 percentage. And when you are talking about the mining and quarrying, which is part of the industry, that is the manufacturing sectors industry, which has reduced to 23 percentage. So if you look at this, yes, the 3 sectors, the one which is doing fairly better is only the agriculture or agriculture and allied sectors. So what is important is that the sector which was largely neglected right from our independence is the one which is fairly doing better than the secondary sector or the tertiary sector The primary sector is the one which is actually now at a better place compared to the secondary sector, that is manufacturing or industries, and the tertiary, that is the service sector. And when we focus in regards to the expenditure, so expenditure, if you look at the expenditure side, the private consumption. So you have, as I said, government consumption, and I also said just 3 days back, private consumption. I did mention about this. So government consumption and then private consumption. So in regards to the expenditure side, the private consumption have fell down to, or it is minus 26.7%. So the private consumption, that is private players are not really coming forward to invest, or the expenditure side what they have wanted to invest has fallen down. And when you look at the investments have plunged to 47%. Why is all this required? Because when you are looking at the economy, Indian economy, how much percentage or which areas or which sectors have been badly hit because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation? Because this will help you in regards to an conceptual point of view while you are writing your mains examination or the answers in the mains examination. It will help you very well, because see the keywords I am talking about: the government consumption and the private consumption. This is expenditure side. And if you look at the export side, if you look at, it has been reduced to almost, it has been fallen down and shrunk to 20%. And if you look at the government consumption, the expenditure grew by 16.4%. So this is what the analysis you have to do: differentiate between the government consumption and the private consumption. It has fallen down to 26.7%, that is private consumption, but government consumption, because it is the, I did use this word couple of days back, that government should go ahead with consumption, or the expenditure of the government should increase. And I said the government consumption is the key driver. I did say this, I remember, is the key driver to the revival of economy. Last week I have said this. Government consumption is a key driver to the revival of the economy. And yes, now compared to the private consumption, government is going ahead with spending, expenditure, but this will not suffice. We need to still further increase it, so that there would be more of liquidity. So that there would be revival of the economy. So now we will look into the other news, that is Supreme Court imposes ₹1 fine on Prashant Bhushan, that is the civil rights activist who is lawyer. And we have seen that the Supreme Court has found guilty Prashant Bhushan for what? For contempt of court. And the Supreme Court has asked Prashant Bhushan to apologize to the court for its tweets and remarks. So he has made a tweet on the Chief Justice of India, S.A. Bobde, Sharath Bobde, and he also made a remark while he was giving an interview to the Tehelka magazine that the judiciary is corrupted. So these two have been taken into consideration, and the Supreme Court has found guilty on Prashant Bhushan on the contempt of court, and it wanted Prashant Bhushan to apologize. But instead, Prashant Bhushan, civil rights lawyer, not activist, civil rights lawyer, has denied that he would not apologize to the Supreme Court, because he said that the statement or the tweets and remarks made were bona fide. Bona fide in the sense, he said the statements made by him in regards to the tweets and remarks were bona fide. What do you mean by bona fide? I did say this: genuine, genuine, or genuine. So he said, as they are genuine, so I cannot. If I apologize, then I am contempting against my bona fide itself. So he did not. So now the Supreme Court has punished the civil rights on August 31st, that is yesterday, by a nominal fine of how much? 1 rupee. 1 rupee. For what? For criminal contempt by scandalizing the court. That is in regards to disrespecting the court, disrespecting the sitting judges or the retired judges. So on that base, the Supreme Court has punished, and the 3-judge bench has gone ahead with, or given this verdict, headed by Justice Arun Mishra, and who is supposed to retire on September 2nd, by showing magnanimity. What do you mean by magnanimity? That is, there was definitely a kind of generosity towards civil rights lawyer, that is Prashant Bhushan, in regards to the punishment by the Supreme Court, which was generosity, but there was not much of severe punishment, with only a nominal fine of ₹1. And definitely Prashant Bhushan has the right to file a review petition, but he says he would definitely pay the fine to the highest team. So the case, almost what we were talking about, the contempt of court and the tweets and remarks, have finally come to an end by the Supreme Court fining or giving the punishment to civil rights lawyer with 1 rupee. And Justice Mishra has also observed here that yes, lawyers are supposed to be fearlessly independent. The lawyers can be fearlessly independent and robust. That means they can speak their mind, but at the same time they have to respect the institutions. They have to respect the institution, that is, respect the court. That for that reason itself, as he hasn't respected the court or the judiciary, the contempt of court case has been imposed on Prashant Bhushan, and the fine to be paid, the last date is September 15, and if he is failing to pay the fine, then he would be liable to undergo a simple imprisonment of 3 months and a ban from practicing at the apex court for 3 years. So if he is not paying the fine, then he would be imprisoned for 3 months, and a ban from practicing for 3 years. 3 years. And the court said that it is up to the Bar Council. Who is the Bar Council? It is the apex lawyers body. Apex lawyers body is what? It is the Bar Council. So it has left it to the Bar Council that to decide whether the Bar Council of India, would suspend the civil rights lawyer, or they would just continue the civil rights lawyer Prashant Bhushan as the Bar Council, member of the Bar Council of India. So it is left to the Bar Council of India. The Supreme Court hasn't taken any decision. But if he is not paying a fine, then he would undergo a simple imprisonment of 3 months and a ban from practicing in the apex court, that is the Supreme Court, for 3 years. But in regards to the suspending the enrollment or the membership from the Bar Council of India, Supreme Court hasn't taken any decision, but it has left to the Bar Council of India, which is the apex lawyers body. So this is in regards to the judgment given by the Supreme Court, or the punishment to the civil rights lawyer. And 6 states, another news is 6 states forced unity on GST compensation. So we did discuss this in regards to the GST compensation, which the center has to pay to the states, So we have discussed around 2.3 lakh or 3 lakh crores around 3 lakh crores is the one which the center has to pay to the states in regards to the GST compensation or the GST compensation, which is part of the GST Act 2017. As per the GST Act 2017, the center has to pay to the states for the first 5 years because the states will be losing the revenue. And now the GST which is one nation one tax, one nation one tax, which will be entirely into the ambit of the union government or the center, which the states will not have much of say in regards to the revenue collection. So the center has said that for the first 5 years it will compensate to the states because of the revenue loss of the one nation one tax. But recently we have seen in the GST Council, the GST Council has decided that the states have to, or they have come up with the two options, that the states have to borrow loan from the RBI. States have to borrow loans from the RBI, and the states will be given an additional external borrowing. 0.5 percentage will be increased. 0.5 percentage will be increased. So these were the two steps or two options which were given by the center, that is by the GST Council, not center, by the GST Council, in regards to the GST compensation which the centers were supposed to be paying to the states, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation, even the center is unable to collect the revenue, and now the center has come up with the two options, that the states can borrow loans from the RBI and the borrowing limit will be increased to 0.5 percentage. So this was not like, because I made a statement even on that day, why the center is asking the states to borrow. I said this, and I said, why not the center take loan from the RBI and then give it to the states, which it has to give it, or which has to be given to the states in the form of GST compensation. Why not the center take loan and then again give it to the states? Why center is asking the state to take loans from the RBI is a question mark. And that itself, now the finance ministers from Telangana, West Bengal, Kerala, Chhattisgarh, Delhi and Punjab, six states have arrived at a consensus that the center should borrow the loan instead of asking the states. So now they are saying that nothing doing, the states will not let the center borrow the money from the RBI. Let the center borrow the money from the RBI and then repay to the states. Why should we borrow the money from the RBI? Because as per the GST Act 2017, the center has to pay the revenue compensation or the revenue gap because of implementing of one nation one tax, that is the GST. That is what the 6 states have come to a consensus. So which are the states? Telangana, West Bengal, Kerala, Chhattisgarh, Delhi and Punjab. And GST Act, as I am talking about 2017, it very clearly states that the compensation was to met if the growth rate of the states, please do understand, as per the GST Act 2017, if the growth rate of the states fall below less than the threshold of 14 percentage, if the growth rate of the states fall below 14 percentage, then the center has to compensate, and nothing doing that the states have to borrow. That is what the 6 state finance ministers have come together under one consensus, and they are asking the center to borrow the loan and give it back to the states in the form of the GST compensation which it is supposed to. So this is an information which is what we have discussed, what the GST Council has said and how the state's finance ministers are responding to the GST Council, that is to the finance minister or GST, because the chairman of the GST Council is the finance minister, union finance minister. And Srikanth Yadav has also joined. A warm welcome to you, Srikanth Yadav, to AKSIS Academy Daily News Analysis. And you have another news which talks about inscription. Though this is again in regards to the history for prelims point of view, because these are all excavations. So we have seen the what is been unearthed is rare Renati Chola era. So here inscription was found which is from the Chola era, which is a rare Renati Chola era inscription, and this is a Chola era inscription, and this has been unearthed in Kadapa district of Andhra Pradesh. And when they have found this inscription, these inscriptions were engraved. That means they were written on dolomite slab. Extremely sorry. So this is the dolomite slab. And this dolomite slab is a part of fragmentary pillar. It's a part of the pillar, fragmentary. It's a part of a pillar which was excavated. So what is important for prelims point of view from UPSC and then again in regards to State Public Service Commission is the inscription is dating back to Renati Chola era and which was found in Kadapa district, and the inscriptions were engraved or written on the dolomite slab of a pillar which was excavated. And if we look at the languages and character, these are all very important for prelims point of view. And character, that means what was written on the dolomite slab. So it was written, the language is archaic Telugu, and the character was written in 25 lines. And when we are talking about these 25 lines, the first side, I mean the one side 11 lines were written, on the other side the rest, that is 14 lines were written. So 11 lines and 14 lines, on one side 11 lines, on the other side 14 lines, and the language is the archaic language. So we have looked at the era. Era is Chola era, district is Kadapa. It was found where? On dolomite slab of a pillar, and the language is archaic Telugu. Characters are 25 lines. One side it is written 11 lines, on the other side 14 lines. So this is the one which we need to understand for the prelims point of view. For India, I mean heritage and culture or history and culture. And this is dated back to 8th century. These are all very important for prelims point of view. Chola era, Kadapa district, language, archaic Telugu, and then characters, 25 lines, 11 and 14 lines. Fine, and then it was engraved in a dolomite. Kadapa district, Chola era, engraved on dolomite slab, which is part of a pillar. Fine. So when we look at the inscription, what it is very clearly talking about is, inscription is talking about it's throwing light on a record of, so it is mentioning about the gift of 6 measuring unit martyrs, 6 martyrs land. So land has been gifted. So the inscription, what we are talking about, the characters, that for 11 lines and 14 lines, this is talking about what? This is talking about the land which is been gifted to a person called as Siddhya Mayu. Siddhya Mayu, a land which is gifted to Siddhya Mayu, and this is how much is gifted? 6 martyrs. That is a measuring unit. 6 martyrs is a measuring unit, and this Siddhya Mayu is a Brahmin as per the inscriptions. Serving, so he was serving in a temple in Pidukula village. These are all very important for prelims point of view. So this inscription is found in Kadapa district in village Pidukula village, and this was on this inscription it was said that 6 martyrs land was gifted to Siddhyamayu, who was a Brahmin, being part of it in a temple in a Pidukula village. And the last lines are indicative prior to the morality in those days. That means the correctness or the virtues or the ethics or the principles which were followed those days, that is in the Cholara, that is in 8th century AD. So that was in the last lines of the inscription, the morality. So the point what you need to look at is, it was talking about morality and the gift of land. The inscription did talk about morality and the gift of lands. This is very important for prelims point of view. And there is another news which talks about RBI moves to ease liquidity further. So we have seen right from March and April 2020, because of the national lockdown, that why, because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation. So what are the consequences of the national lockdown? Damage to the economic activity. Fine. And then Indian economy has contracted. The reason or the effects, repercussions of national lockdown is damage to economic activity, and then Indian economy has contracted, have fallen down, shrinked very badly. And in that regards, we have seen the Prime Minister of India, the Finance Minister, both have come together in going ahead with economic stimulus package of 20 lakh crore rupees. Fine. And along with this, the RBI has also come up with various measures to pump, or to ease liquidity. What do you mean by liquidity? That is the money flow. So we have looked at, along with the Prime Minister of India, Finance Minister, the RBI has also done its job very effectively, making sure that it comes up with various measures to ease liquidity in the market. When I am saying in the market, it is with the banks plus, that is nationalized banks, or it could be the micro, small and medium enterprises. Along with that, the citizens, people. So nationalized banks, micro, small and medium enterprises, that is in the informal sectors, and also the citizens should have the money. So for that they have come up with various measures, and now the measure what they have taken up is that they have gone ahead with or they would conduct an open market operation. Open market operation. So that when I am talking about various measures, that is in regards to the, I discussed about repo rate, reverse repo rate, and then in regards to the making sure that they maintain the liquidity by statutory liquidity ratio. All these were taken into consideration, and now open market operation. So by open market operation, what the RBI will do is, it will make sure that the purchase and sale purchase and sale of what? Government securities. So what are all the securities of the government? The OMS, that is open market operation, they will go ahead with auctioning the government securities that they would purchase or sale. They can purchase. So the Apex Bank here is there, and then the nationalized banks. Apex Bank is RBI, and then the nationalized banks. It could be all XYZ nationalized banks. Right? Apex Bank and nationalized bank. So Apex Bank, through the open market operation, it will go ahead with auctioning the, please do understand, it will go ahead with auctioning the government securities for an aggregate amount of 20,000 crore. 20,000 crore, and this auctioning will be done in two phases. That is, first phase will be on September 10th and the second phase will be on September 17th. So on September 10th, it will be 10,000 crore of auctioning of the government securities. That is, it will be both purchase and sale. And the second phase will be on September 17th, the remaining 10,000 crore. So by this, what it will do is, it will pump, it will again make sure that it will get into the mode of easing the liquidity pressure. What the nationalized banks or micro, small and medium enterprises, or even in regards to the entire market is facing. So what is the one which you need to focus here is, the RBI has come up with a special measure, that is open market operation. So here open market operation, government securities, purchase and sales. Why all this? To ease liquidity pressure. Open market operation, government securities, which they will go ahead with purchase and sales. And why all this? To ease the liquidity pressure. And the central banks, that is the government, definitely now we have seen this OMO, open market operation. Why? By the RBI. Why it has come up? On the day when the government has announced that the quarterly contraction has taken place, that is quarter 1 of 2021 and quarter 2 also it will further extend. That is what the government has also come up. The finance ministry has also made it very clear that the Indian economy quarter 1 and quarter 2 of 2021 is contracting. When they have come up with that statement, immediately RBI has come up with the measure to ease the liquidity with open market operation. This is how you need to link. RBI has come up with this measure to ease the liquidity when the government has announced that the Indian economy in the quarter 1 it has squeezed and it will further extend to quarter 2 also, they have said. And not only that, the center's fiscal deficit, that is the expenditure what the government has to go ahead, it has increased 100% fiscal deficit. So if it is 3 to 3.5%, it has increased 100% of the fiscal deficit in the first 4 months itself. In the first 4 months, that is in the first quarter itself. Why? Definitely again the government was focusing on pumping of money. And here the RBI is definitely focusing on using these instruments to go ahead with all the measures. It has come up with various measures to ease the liquidity. And what does it happen? These measures, what does it happen? It will revive the economy. The measures taken by the RBI will revive the economy. How does it revive the economy? How does the measures taken by the RBI in easing the liquidity will revive the economy? Yes, we will look at. First is by maintaining congenial financial conditions. By maintaining congenial financial conditions. So what condition is government facing or India facing, which is not really good? Congenial in the sense good. So we are not in a mode of good financial conditions. We are bad financial condition. So maintaining congenial, good. So to maintain good financial condition, the RBI is taking measures to ease the liquidity. So congenial is good, good relations, good financial condition here. And the second one is mitigate the impact of COVID-19. Mitigate. The second one is mitigate the impact of COVID-19. What do you mean by mitigate? To lessen, to lessen, to reduce, to reduce the impact of COVID-19 on economy. And the third one is to restore the economy, to restore the economy to path of what? Sustainable growth. So this is important, to restore the economy for the to the path of sustainable growth. This is very important keyword. So all these are when I'm taking up this all these points separately, that means they are very important for prelims as well as mains keyword. And preserving the macroeconomic and financial stability. So it will also make sure that it preserves the macroeconomic and financial stability. So when we are talking about preserving the macroeconomic and financial stability, so you have micro level economy, you have macro level economy. So it will preserve the macro level economy and the financial stability. That means the financial condition would be better, not bad or worse. So that is why the RBI has taken the measure to ease the liquidity, and by taking the measures to ease the liquidity, what it will do? It will revive the economy. How does it revive the economy? By maintaining congenial financial condition, by mitigating the impact of COVID-19, and by restoring the economy to the sustainable growth, a path of the sustainable growth, and by preserving the macroeconomic and financial stability. So these are the one which you need to focus from mains as well as prelims point of view. So we will recapitulate what we have discussed. So we were talking about the PLS aggression blocked at Pangong. So we have did discuss in regards to the LAC and also in regards to geography map based for prelims point of view. And then GDP falls to, this is in regards to the economy we did discuss for prelims point of view. So this is again in regards to the Supreme Court verdict, which is contempt of court from polity point of view. And this again 6 days forms GST compensation. This is again in regards to the economy, focusing on GST Act as per the GST Act. And you should also focus on GST Council. As I said last class, the static part of the GST Council and then the static part of the GST Act. And then this is in regards to the Indian heritage and culture, which we have looked at Chola era, 8th century and all that, which is again very important for prelims point of view. And RBI moves to ease liquidity further. This is the measures taken by the RBI to ease liquidity. Again, this is in regards to the prelims as well as the measures taken by the RBI, which could be part of your mains also, wherein it could be a short notes for your mains. And then Sri Biki has joined. A warm welcome to you, Sri Biki. So I hope this session was a helpful one, an informative one, and also it will be very useful for the prelims as well as mains examinations and also interview. And I would say a big thank you to all and a good luck to you all. And then do like the video, share the video, and then subscribe the video. And when I'm saying subscribe the video, please do subscribe the AKS IAS English channel. I've been telling this since couple of days, so do subscribe this, because I've told the reason also why the necessity to subscribe, because the daily news analysis by me will be gradually shifted to the English channel of AKS IAS Academy. So do subscribe the AKS IAS Academy, and also do visit the AKS IAS website, Academy website, and also subscribe to the Telegram link of AKS IAS Academy also. And in regards to the daily news analysis, I would see you once again tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. and then I would reiterate my sentences or the keywords for you in regards to your preparation. Do maintain consistency and do stick to your schedule, and then do take care of your physical health and mental health. And I hope this session would definitely enhance your skills to have an edge over others, both in prelims and mains and also in the interview. And I would say a big thank you all, and all the best. And all the best for your preparation. See you tomorrow at 7:30 a.m.